Oh God, eat my ejaculation, says Jesus Christ. It's alive. Yeah.
So that's what he told Mary on the mountain?
Yeah. In the woods. He took her out in the woods.
Yeah. We actually read about this on a previous podcast that we did with somebody. Who did remember we like read through this?
Did you? Okay.
On a recent pod, we saw it on a blog post where there was a guy. He was calling it it was Bart Ammon or something.
Bart Ehrman.
Bart Ehrman.
Right?
Yeah. He was explaining this the something about Mary, and he talked about how Jesus was making Mary eat his.
The greater letters of Mary.
The greater, yes, that's no. He was calling it the greater questions of Mary.
No, that's it. Is it's questions.
Questions of Mary. Yeah.
It is. Oh God, what do? It's a clear reference. And by the way, it's one thing I can do is I can unlock for you the fact that when Jesus talks at that moment about bringing the woman from his side. Mm-hmm. People always think, and you think back to Eve and the presentation of Eve in the Septuagint, which was a Hellenistic document, if and not a Hebrew one, never was. And when you think about what he did when he said it brought a woman out of his side, is a process of, I can show you the text, is a process of sexual activity. And engaging the flanks. Have you ever engaged a woman in the flank? Oh, do you understand what I'm saying? You put that energy into the flank. Boom! Bring it from both sides. Shoot it right in there. You know what I mean?
Both sides?
Yeah. Boom! Just shoot it right in. You know what I mean? And it's the sex cult. That's the thing that's so cool about this is there's a lot of sex cult stuff going on.
Yeah. No, you made that clear last time.
Yeah, and it says in the text, in the Greek text. Now remember, people, how is this person getting this stuff? How is Ammon getting this stuff? It's just text out there in Greek. And you can look at these, people. And this one says something beautiful. This one says something beautiful. It says the kids were afraid of the drugs. They were afraid of the drugs that Jesus was talking about.
The kids were?
Yeah, because he wanted them to eat his ejaculate. That's what it says. He engaged Mary sexually out in the woods. And then he said, you've got to eat. You've got to eat my aporoya. You've got to eat my ejaculate. That's life. I'm looking at a word for have. Sexual penetration. To penetrate somebody sexually. And who's it referring to? It's referring to Jesus and the little bits of questions of
Mary on the mountain.
Yeah. And it says that he wants her to receive his seed to be eaten. Mm-hmm. To be eaten. And the beautiful thing about it is, because she's hesitant, he says, look, you just don't get things that are epi-urania, right? They're epuranian. And if you don't know what that is, that's a Greek word. Huh?
For?
Right. For that which is translated now as heavenly, but it is things that are based in urania. Let me tell you who Urania is. She is the one that you see when you look up. She is the queen of the Scythian band that uses the arrow poison to give them the inspiration to play the lyres. She's the huntress who is the Sotera. She is the earliest savior. And her mystery is the mystery that ultimately forms Christianity. And that mystery is what Jesus is reflecting here and saying, hey, you got to eat it or you're not going to have salvation, lady. And he's like, you don't believe me because you can't think on things that are epi-urania. Lady, who's Urania? She's Aphrodite, you sexy beast. What do you think Mary Magdalene was for? You need a vagina because there are purple flowers in the world, people. There are purple flowers. Oh, by the way, the apostles didn't want to do it.
They didn't want to eat his ejaculate?
No.
Why?
And they said it's his iskra. They acknowledged openly he wants us to eat directly his seed, his semen.
Why? And
I don't know. If you were a kid, would you want to eat?
Fuck no. But what was there any? He obviously wasn't an antidote because he wasn't a eunuch, right?
It was gonna save you. It was gonna give you
what was the pharmacological
ionic vision?
How though?
Whatever's in his semen, baby.
What do you think was in his semen?
I don't know. I don't want to find out.
Neither do I.
Yeah, no. Fuck that, man. Bring these guys to justice, you know?
How could he have any sort of chemicals in his semen that would get you high?
Because they're using the body to process drugs.
Yeah, but he wasn't a boy though. You said the boys were doing that. They had to be young so that they could create the antibodies to be the Antichrist.
When he's with Mary, he wants her to eat his semen, and he uses very specific terms like fellatio.
Oh.
It's through the fellatio
He just
that
wanted
he's
a
getting.
blowjob.
Yeah. You could be negative. You know?
I mean, just say you want a blowjob. You don't have to pretend like your life is the fucking Da Vinci Code. Just ask her for a blowy.
I think that's why the apostles were like, no. I think that's why they were passing. You got to think,
He's a cult leader.
He said that's why you don't understand heavenly things.
He's
I'm sorry.
a cult leader. He's trying to, the guy just wants sex and drugs, and he's trying to paint this mythical, this cosmic, godlike connection that he thinks he has to make people follow him so he can get more sex and drugs.
He got baptized, baby. He got baptized by John. He was with the devil for 40 days, brother. Do you know what I mean?
No.
You don't know because we haven't been initiated.
I can't. I have a hard time sometimes parsing through the poetry, and and what you're actually trying to say.
Yeah, he was
with the devil.
Ammon. Yeah, he was baptized and he went into the void.
Oh yeah, so he did drugs. Right. He performed a ritual, a mystery.
When he did the baptism, he saw Uranus open. Right? What do you see when you see Uranus open?
He met the devil.
You're epi-Urania.
So he got high.
Uranian.
He got high and he met the devil.
Yeah, it says that.
What still happens today?
Yeah,
you hear people talking about all the time. I got too high. I saw the fucking devil.
Do you get blowjobs when you get high and meet the devil?
I wish.
You're
once or twice.
You're probably a cult leader if you did. Wait, seriously, Danny? Shame on you.
Not when I'm in the depths of hell.
Right.
But maybe when I'm coming out of hell, or when I'm descending down into hell. I've participated in the rituals, but you know, Jesus was a sicko.
No, you gotta suck those teats, man, or it's gonna kill you. That's why he's walking around telling you know, Jesus encouraged people to use drugs. And I say that and people are like, no, absolutely not. He encouraged people to use drugs. Where did he encourage them? He said, look, you're gonna hold up snakes. You're going to drink this thanasimon, this death inducer, which is a cult compound. Nero's got the friggin' formula for it. Do you understand? This is a big deal in antiquity.
Yes.
And he's involved in this stuff. Jesus Christ is involved in this stuff. He's even got the poison garments. Right? He does what those who were Christed do. He casts out demons.
So you also said on the first podcast, you mentioned that when Jesus was caught in the park, he was high as fuck.
Yes.
He was tripping balls.
Correct.
Cops captured him.
Yep.
And he was crucified 8 hours later.
Yeah.
He was captured at 4, crucified.
I don't know if it was a full 8. I don't know if it was full 8 hours, but by like 3 o'clock, he's dead.
3 o'clock, he's
so
dead. And
I think it's noon. He starts getting
He
crucified.
died early.
Yeah.
Right?
He died prematurely.
And they offered, and he screamed. He was screaming out. Some people say he was singing.
Yeah.
And somebody offered him, his followers were trying to give him a sponge or something full of vinegar.
Correct.
And you say that Nonus wrote about that vinegar being an antidote to the horned African viper.
He says it's an antidoton, so he uses the Greek word antidote for the dipsas, which is identified as the North African horned viper.
Okay, let's put a pin right there.
Because of its symptom that it causes, that is extreme thirst.
Right.
When he's on the cross, he's screaming, I am thirsty. And there is a document. The reason that Nonus is telling us this is the Geoponica also shows that the word that you and I are translating vinegar is the word for the antidote, commonly for the specific snake venom that is used in their religious rites. Jesus is pushing those very same drugs in the Gospel of Mark.
When was Nonus? Who was Nonus?
Yeah, fifth
Anno Domini?
AD, and he is an author of a work called The Paraphrase of John, and he's an expert grammarian. We don't have these anymore, but they're called grammatikoi, and he was able to reproduce this ancient form of Homeric dactylic hexameter. He's able to bring it down because it's the cult language. He brought it down to the fifth into the sixth, and
he quite literally wrote about that vinegar being the specific word for the antidote for the viper venom.
He actually wrote. You can look it up. It's in a work called The Paraphrase of the Gospel of John.
The Paraphrase of the Gospel.
Where he goes through the whole Gospel of John and he explains to you what's going on. He writes it in his own beautiful, lofty Greek. It's not Attic Greek. It's Homeric. And the fact that he could master their vocabulary on top of his own is quite dramatic.
In the 5th century.
Yeah, he's doing this late. But he says it's an antidote, which the Geoponica, which is a Byzantine farming manual, it actually has the recipe for it. And it says the vinegar and then it treats the dipsas and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not making that up. That's in there. And
so does anybody else who's read that? I imagine Ruck has read that, right? He's read Nonus.
Why would he have read the Geoponica?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that not a common thing for classicists to read?
No. Totally uncommon.
Where did you find it?
Dr. John Scarborough put me onto it.
Okay.
He said, hey, get this Byzantine text. I was like, why's that? He's like, it's full of drugs. I was like, good. So, yeah. And it has the whole explanation of what the vinegar is and what it does. So when Jesus is up there going, oh, I'm so thirsty, right?
But so he was translating John's gospel. And the way John wrote was not complex. It was very primitive, right?
No.
And John wrote it in what language?
Greek.
In Greek.
It's Greek.
Was Nonus's Greek better than John's?
Nonus's Greek was a
more detailed.
Think of it as if it's two guitarists. It's somebody who's a master of the guitar. Compared to somebody who is, proficient and able to perform in bars, but is never going to take a stage of a group and infatuate 1,000, 100,000 people because of their level of artistic, gain. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with somebody who's, and you get that. There's all sorts of different sorts. Some of them, look, I'm sorry, you read the Aristotle. It makes you feel stupid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not as smart as Aristotle. I'm not. I don't think anybody else around us is, to be quite honest. So you see that reflected in the language gives them that sword, that sharp sword to be able to use, to be able to bring you something, some kind of ecstasy, right? Why are we so far behind? Why are we just hearing about emperors on drugs? Why are we just hearing about the sex industry, the kink and antiquity? You know what I can do? This is what the word is, motherfucker. Give me a eunuch. What do you do with eunuchs? You don't even know. You don't even know.
You sell them. You trade them.
Yeah. What
you can get the antidote with them.
If you buy some, if you and I go out tonight with Steve and we're like, let's get 2 eunuchs. Okay. What are we gonna do with those eunuchs?
You tell me.
No, what do you want to do? I don't know.
I don't want 2 eunuchs.
It was your idea. If you're going to do this and we commit, I don't want to be there and you're like, oh, I don't know.
I'm not committing to 2 eunuchs. I'm not going to do that. I don't need the eunuchs. I don't need an antidote.
But let's just say it's the world. Just a thought experiment.
Okay. Let's do a thought experiment. Okay.
Yeah, 2 eunuchs.
I hope somebody clips this out of context.
We're going to bring these 2 eunuchs back here. Right? And I have some things I want to do with them. Right? What would you like to? Just as we're producers, we're going to bring this thing forward. Right? Now you know why performing the mysteries was highly illegal. Right? It's only the priesthood that's allowed to do this. Right? That's why they protect it. You couldn't do it recreationally. You couldn't perform a mystery at your house.
Because
it turns into a child sex ring. You remember, you're protecting oracles, baby. You have to have a priesthood that puts up a legal shield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So tell me why we need the eunuchs.
Oh, okay. Well, what can you do with the eunuch?
You can extract their bodily fluids.
Some of them you can. Some of them, but before, you don't just jump in to extracting body fluids. My God, man. Romance this thing.
Sorry.
We can take off their testicles. The first thing that we do, you grab that.
They're already eunuch.
8. Well, that's part of the fun.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. Get beyond the castration. Fine. So we castrate our eunuchs, and then their body becomes a vessel of nectar. And there are ways you can give people drugs and have them produce certain substances that can then be harvested from the person. Right? Mm-hmm. Drugs straight out, right? And the eunuch, you can collect from that eunuch his milk, right? I don't say it looks like milk. They don't. They describe it, and it's serous. Just like that girl with the grape-sized breasts that Galen talks about, and the serous exudate that comes out of her breasts that they're using. Right? That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. They're talking about transforming. Can you capacitate? Look, I had this down here. Right after Jesus' ejaculation, I was going to talk about, can you capacitate somebody with drugs? You've got to remember the societies that we're talking about will also base what they're doing on the idea that you can use drugs to take yourself to a better state. Your mind, your soul, everything. All right? So the drug is very much the mysterion, is very much the mystery, so much so that Galen says, hey, you realize so-and-so has his mysterion and it's called blank. Mm-hmm. Right? So the word mystery itself becomes a drug term. So I think that's the only thing I can add to Dr. Rook standing in the breach.
Right.
With his giant tools of doom in his fingers and his linguistic, his brain, and his heart. He's a good man.
There's a lot of people online that really want this guy to debate you. So let's listen to what his response is to your translation of the word Christ.
Yeah, perfect.
Here we go.
All right. Eternal throne as the second person of the Trinity stepping into humanity. But if you were to say to someone after this, if someone said like, hey, you met Wes Huff, how was he? And you went, he's a little bit condescending. You wouldn't be talking about my humility.
No.
Right? Because that word has a different meaning in its different context. And part of the problem with something like what Ammon says is that he's taking terminology that exists within the parameters of a specific field, and then he's applying them in areas where there's an entirely different contextual meaning and spectrum of understanding.
It's a big
so
turd.
part
Pinch
of what
it
he
off.
said that some people jumped on was that he says that the word Christ comes from the Greek word chrio, which
Yes.
it does, right? To anoint. And in ancient Greek medical texts, there is a usage of that, which he has capitalized on with applying drugs to your eyes. Now, more broadly, chrio does mean to rub, particularly a liquid ointment or substance, on your body. So this relates to everything from bathing to ritual practices in religious circumstances. But you could likewise say if you were an ancient Roman and you had a bath and you came out and you put on cream, skin cream,
Right.
so your skin didn't dry out, that was an example of chrio. You were applying it to your body. Well, within the religious connotation of Christianity, it is the translation of the Greek word Mashiach, Messiah, which likewise means anointed one, right? There were multiple anointed ones in the Old Testament. It was just a word that was referred to priests or kings and had a very specific connotation in the Mashiach who would come and be different. And the Greek translation of that, which both the Greek translation of the Old Testament and in the New Testament both use, is Christ. Why? Because it means anointed one. So Ammon takes that and he says, well, in this very specific instance, in this stream of classical medical literature, it means to apply a drug to your eyes, specifically
Yes.
in related to not the bot fly. What does he say?
The bot fly.
He relates it to a fly. And
I don't remember the detail, but
well, and it does mean
Wouldn't
that
you, moron?
in the particular instance that it's being used. But this is where semantic range is
Bullshit.
very important.
Semantic range.
Oh, God.
And this is the problem that some
Hold on,
others
hold on.
have.
Let him finish. Let him finish.
yeah,
He's almost
we
there.
pull up this clip, by the way? He's
about to climax.
There's context. I think I have it.
All right, fast forward
see,
through the
so
part
that-
where he plays the
because
clip. We don't need to play that again. Okay,
Is
there.
not says there, but you're saying that like he's stretching some of his knowledge on the pharmacological history of language and bringing that into, say, Jesus's lexicon and how he says things.
Yeah.
you know.
So there's two sort of terms that are used specifically within biblical studies, but this applies to anything within the ancient world where we're trying to come up with translations in deriving meaning. The first is there's a discipline called hermeneutics, and hermeneutics is this interpretation. It's the methodology of interpretation that we use on a particular text. Before hermeneutics is exegesis, and exegesis is a Greek word that literally means to bring out. Right, the opposite would be eisegesis, to read into. So when you're
fingering
exegeting
me.
something and you're looking at an ancient language, you're trying to get at the author's intention by different levels of contextual application.
He's
So
pulling the
there's
demon out of you.
Stop.
contextualization, there's
You're trying to.
document contextualization,
I can't take it. I can't take it. I can't take
You
it.
look
Please,
like you're
thank you.
going through an exorcism
Steve,
right now.
Steve,
Is
stop.
Wes
is
Huff pulling the
doing-
devil out of you right now?
God.
He's
Oh, God,
confusing
stop.
and
It's so
Haven't you
bad.
ever heard of hermeneutics?
It's
realms of how we do
Stop. You're trying to get to the intention of the author. No, you're not. You're reading an ancient language.
Ammon, you're pulling out a specific context in Galen's medical text and trying to apply it to everything across the board,
Here's the problem.
which is intellectually dishonest.
Here's the problem. I'm not pulling it out of Galen. Does Galen have it? Yes. Fucking Euripides has it. He gets a sex drug that is a Christ. One of the characters asks, is it a Christ? This is not from the medical. This is from everything. Everything, Wes Huff, you fucking fake. Yeah, this is why he wouldn't face me. I can tell you right now, and I can tell your audience. Your audience must know. This man does not really read Greek. What is he, finishing his PhD?
He's finishing his PhD.
Yeah, he's finishing his PhD in biblical studies. You know what that means? It means he's had a couple of semesters of Greek. Yeah, he was able to say the name Xenophon. That was nice. Dude, does he read ancient Greek? No. That's why what comes out of his mouth is theological bullshit. This is not a craftsman. This is not a skill. This is theology taking you into a back alley and putting its finger in your butt. Yeah. And that's why he wouldn't face me. That's why he wouldn't. Let's read some Greek. Let's look at where it says Jesus ejaculated, wanted Mary to suck it down.
So who are the other authors that say that Christ is applying a drug to your eyes besides Galen?
John, the apostle. Where are they? Oh God. This is the huff of the
He's
West.
saying it's only in a few places, and you're saying it's literally everywhere.
Here, get this. Focus on the camera. Here's some Greek for you, Wes. You idiot. It's in the book of Revelation, you moron. God tells them you better Christ your eyes so they'll be opened. You're not, Wes. You don't know what you're doing. You're a second-rate biblical scholar that will go down every time to a class and says, why, Wes? Because I read those fucking texts. I love it.
How do you really feel?
Let me tell you. Sometimes I think I can feel their buttocks.
You're passionate about this,
aren't you?
I think
I can feel it. Well, it's what the devil gives you, man. It's what the devil gives you. Look, he's been pumped up in his pride. He thinks he's something now because he slaughtered somebody who was making stuff up. Well, guess what? This is the gymnasium of the cosmos, baby. Right? You'll be taken down. You'll be taken down by somebody who knows. Right? Oh, God. I love those classes. Did you talk to any classicists? I would love to say, hey, why don't you get over here and start reading the text that you are. You know, Princeton just got rid of their Greek program, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they did. You know why? It was because it's too hard.
The way I understand it is there's like the Bible and then there's Christianity that is like this veneer that people don't like to look through. They don't like to look past that. But behind that, there's a whole nother universe of history with all this other stuff, from poetry to comedy to musical stuff to philosophy to medical texts. That is just like, once you can penetrate that veil of Christianity and the church, there's so much more to learn.
Yeah, you got it. Listen to that. You just cracked the ages. You know what I mean? Right? When you see through that Christian filter, and I don't want to say Christian, it's a monist filter, because the same thing happened to the Egyptians, like in the 14th century BC. They had a monism that came along, one God, and everybody's one God, and everybody else has to be ignored, and forget her, Lady Justice, and those were the followers of Aten, right? And anyway, whether it's Atonism or Christianity or Judaism or Islam, those are monist traditions. And monist traditions follow patterns in history. And if you can penetrate that monist lens and get back down to the classical civilization, you can explain what those very earliest Christians were doing. Because their writings are at the same time. Here's the big problem, people. This is why the world is so screwy, and why the history that you think you know is not the accurate history. It's not the factual history, because you're looking through a lens of theology. You're looking through a lens, and it's distorting the way that you're perceiving the world. And the reason you're doing that is because the focus was narrowed to the biblical or Christian or monist texts. So outside of that world is an entire other world. It's what surrounds it and makes it operate like Christ. Jesus didn't show up and become the first Christ. Right?
The first Christ was Lady Babylon.
The first linguistic reference we've got to an historical person, the Queen of Babylon, the Medea, she is first portrayed as Christing herself. But when Jesus is there, 1,000 years later, when he's doing his thing, that word is going to be very important. It's history and everything about it. People, here's what I mean. Let me crack the lens a little bit for you. There are 5 words in Greek, ancient Greek. They are the most prominent words that you're going to hear in Christianity. And those 5 words are all drug terms. They're all drug terms. Are you ready? Christ, Savior, baptism, mystery, and what's the 5th?
Resurrection?
No. Oh, God, I forgot the 5th. I'll think of it in a minute. Where's that?
Too much tobacco.
I need some more of the tobacco to jog my memory. But all of those, gospel, see, it works. Gospel. People don't realize it. That's the beautiful one. Can I?
Of course.
Please.
Of course. Yeah. Sorry.
Tobacco. Yay. What is the? Oh God, where's my lighter paper?
It's there, isn't it?
How can
is it
you,
under this?
How
There
can,
it is. There it is. Under the Pope hat.
It's under my hat. Gospel. People don't realize that the word gospel is the word that you use when a drug is given to a person. It's the drug's efficacy. The gospel is what brings you salvation. Salvation, right? And remember, there's no clear delineation between drug use and religion and medicine. Those are all part of the same world. This is why you have prophets. Anybody knows, and this is I'm going to rock the world with this. Are you ready? And people are going to be, how can he say that? Look at the text, people. The only thing that a prophet designates is somebody who sees visions via drugs.
And prophets were people who were bombed on drugs in antiquity.
Not just bombed, but, like integrated into their whole...
They were like shamans?
Repertoire, yeah, that you could touch their clothing and everybody knew you're going to get some kind of blessing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, a vision perhaps. A vision. I'm sorry, am I yelling in your ear?
No, you're fine. Fine. No, it's great.
A vision.
But what do you say to all the people online? There was many of them who said and people that I've had on this podcast since that say there is this semantic range and the word Christ had many different meanings. And just because that you say it was a drug term doesn't mean that that's the only meaning it had. There were many other readings, and you're broad brushing the word Christ to mean what you want it to mean.
Those people don't read classical Greek. All of those critics, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of them actually does classical Greek. If they did, they wouldn't make such a stupid statement, right? The role of the classical philologist, the job is to find that lexical reality. What does that word mean? And so what you do is when you read works over a period of 1,000 years, because remember, that's what we do. We read stuff that takes place over 1,000 years. Okay, so it's not just like, this is not, I tell my students, you're not just learning English. You're not just learning English or German or French.
Right.
Right? You're learning over a millennium, 2 millennia. You're following the track of the Logos. I love you, Mr. Box. You're tracking
It's a great box.
The arc of the Logos. right? And that's why those terms like that, there's a whole physics behind it and whatnot. And the classicist has actually had the privilege, if they're good, of reading everything around, right, over a 2,000-year span. Boom. And then when somebody comes to you with a text, for example, the Bible, right, you've got a broad context of where that thing sits and where the meaning has drifted or not drifted or augmented or changed, right? Because that's what meaning does. Mm-hmm. That's why they say semantic drift and whatnot.
Semantic drift, right? The meaning changes over time.
Yes, right? Because they're living. They grow and they develop, they age and they die. Right? Language is living, for anybody who didn't figure that out.
What is the semantic drift of the word Christ?